everyone, it's Desiree, and I am here finally with part 2 of the Simon Says April 2018 card kit. So let's jump right in and let's get started with card 6. So for this one, I'm going to use both of the oxides that came in the kit, Squeeze Lemonade and Mermaid Lagoon. So first on this piece of cardstock, I'm using the Squeeze Lemonade, and I'm just putting just a light shadow down. I don't want it to be solid. I don't want it to be perfect. I'm going to spray it some water with my Distress sprayer, just so I can have some texture going on in the background. Yep, drop that. I'm then going to use the inks to stamp with, because that's the beauty of Distress oxides. You can stamp with them. It's not like the regular Distress inks. And they will give you a great solid impression. So you can really see that. But now I'm going to take that same stamp with the Mermaid Lagoon, and I'm going to go over the yellow the Squeeze Lemonade that I just stamped. So now I get this green teal color over it. So I stamped perfectly over it. I was pretty impressed with myself. I'm now going to grab my aqua brush, and now I'm going to move this ink. Now, this is not Bristol paper. It's not watercolor paper. This is just regular Neenah Solar cardstock. So I just wanted to move those pigments around. Still seeing the stamp, though. So now I'm going to pull in the stencil, and now I'm going to use the Mermaid Lagoon, because again, when it goes on top of this yellow, it's going to have a hint of a green to it. And I'm going to use one of my finger sponge daubers just to lightly tap that color down onto my cardstock through the stencil. So I'm not going for a solid image here, almost like a faded, like a shadow, so to speak. And since this stencil, you have that second layer, I'm now going to go heavier with this stencil part. So now I'm going to get those lines, almost like the definition of the wings. So you can still see the butterfly. So soft wings, but a solid center. I'm going to get some of the dots in there as well. And then I also did the top one with both the green and the yellow. I'm bringing my aqua brush back in, and again, I'm going to move that color, and then I'm going to create two little tiny antennas off that small butterfly. And you can see I have that little butterfly in between the greens and the larger one. So I'm moving the colors on the larger one just in that center section. Again, it'll give it almost like a watercolor look. Again, this is not watercolor paper. You can do this on regular cardstock because you're not using that much water. The other butterfly the other butterfly I just made solid with the inks. I'm using the sentiment, Keep Smiling, Today is a New Day. And I've put those two sentiments together. No cards were harmed, but I did wave it just a little bit to help it dry. I used My Favorite Things Wonky Stitch die, and I propped this up with some double-sided foam tape and put that on my 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 top folding card base. I had recently purchased some of the, I think they're Katya Studio gems in black. And they come in multiple sizes when you do purchase them. So I'm just placing them all throughout this card as well, because the sentiment is black. So just to pull that up through, instead of doing splatters, which you could do as well. Card 7, I have to say, is my favorite. So I actually stamped the images, and I finally used my scan and cut. I had a ball with it, and cut out the floral piece, or the greenery piece, and I made sure they were connected so that I could get the solid cut from the scan and cut. I took my antique frame dies from Penny Black, which are my second favorite, and I cut a piece of vellum. So this whole panel is vellum. And I'm using the Distress brush, which These work really well. They're very similar to the Nuvo tonic brushes, the larger ones that you see me use. So if you're looking for a smaller one, you could go with these. And I'm just using the Mermaid Lagoon around the edge of the vellum, and then I'm putting some down in the center. So I'm keeping it on the white paper so that you can see it, see how it stands out. I'm going to use my anti-static tool on top of where I put the blue in the center because I want to stamp my sentiment there. You make me feel like I can fly. And I'm going to use my VersaFine black ink, and I'm going to stamp that down onto the vellum. Now remember, when you stamp down on vellum, and I'm horrible at this, I do stamp CPR. You want to use a light touch so that it doesn't smear. Excuse me. And then I'm going to use my clear embossing powder from Recollections that I get at Michael's just to seal that in because it would take forever to dry. So that helps speed up the process. And you can see once it's on my white 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 top folding card base, you can really see the accents. So for these, I have all of the Spectrum Noir glitter pens. They are phenomenal. They're to die for. So what I saw also with the greens was to make like a flower bud coming off of them. Now the beauty of these sparkle pens is when you put your color down, I'm just lightly touching the bottom corner with the darker shade of pink. It actually bleeds as if it was a watercolor. These were not stamped on watercolor paper or Bristol paper. Yes, I finally decided to zoom in for you so that you can actually see this. But you can see how it's just bleeding when I just lightly touch it on the bottom. It's just moving. So I really was inspired by that. I thought it was absolutely gorgeous. So these are 2 shades of pink. And I believe it's Rose Quartz and Macaroon are the 2 colors that I'm using here. So those are the little flower buds inside. So again, just because you see a leaf doesn't mean you can't get yourself out of your box, see what everybody else does. See something else in there. So for now, for the leaves, I'm using Soft Jade and Emerald Green. So the Soft Jade is going down first, and then I'm putting this very bright and vibrant green down at the base, and you can just see it just is blending right up throughout the leaf. So it's actually doing its own shading. And again, I'm just literally dropping it in like you would a watercolor. And you can see the two-tone effect that you get. And of course, glitter. We have a lot of shimmer going on with these 2 pieces. This, I will say, it is my favorite card from the collection. I'm just going to glue these down. We don't have to worry about seeing the adhesive through the vellum because it doesn't matter, because we're just going to glue that down, and then that's where we're going to put our glue on the other side of the vellum to put down onto our card base. And now I'm going to place the one that's up on top, and I'm okay that I don't do a solid coverage of adhesive. I like the texture when it curls up. So when I put my glue on the back of the vellum, I'm only going on to the leaves. So the vellum is actually not going to be completely adhered to the card as well. So it just adds that little bit of texture for me when it comes to the card. I am going to place an acrylic block down on that to make sure that it does adhere. And then I pulled in my Nuvo Jewel Drops in Sea Breeze. And I'm just going to add a few drops around the sentiment in the center. Again, it is my favorite. I thought it was really different. Again, get yourself out of that box. Oh, wait till you see card number 8. This one's awesome. So if you saw a previous video where I had to tear a card apart, this one's no different. I was on a roll. So I'm taking my 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Instead of a top folding, we're going to make it a side folding. I used my Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die to cut out the rainbow panel. I'm using my VersaFine ink to to stamp my sentiment on my circle that I die cut using one of my stitch dies. And now I'm just playing around with the placement. I'm going to have some fun foam behind the rainbow panel, and I'm going to set that in place. Now I'm also going to set my thinking of you sentiment, and I place it down. I'm starting to laugh because I just couldn't believe I did what I did here. So I place that down in the bottom right hand corner. So everything is looking really well. For the butterfly stamp, I wanted it to go the other way. So I figured, all right, why not use the back of the stamp? We've seen people do it before. I believe Jennifer has done this before. Jennifer's looked a lot nicer. I'm just going to say that because this one did not. It looks like a big thumbprint blob. So, and I continue to stamp. That's what's, there goes the finger. This is where I'm like, oh my God, that is horrible looking. So, we needed to think about what we needed to do because you all know me. I will not give up on a card. I just will not. So, we ripped this up. You can see the horrible markings that we have. And it's perfect because it will cover up the fingerprint butterfly blob that we have going on there. So I'm going to stamp another butterfly up in the upper left-hand corner. You know I like the look of black and everything else. So then I grabbed one of the other ones that I had stamped and pre-cut, and I'm using one of my Prismacolor alcohol markers to make it solid black. I curled it a little bit, and I'm going to put some foam underneath the wings. And you can see I covered up that corner. So we just have that little piece, and I'm just pulling away some of those stray pieces of cardstock. Fingers are still going, though, at this point. So I cut a strip about 3/4 of an inch wide of the lime green paper from the kit, and I'm just going to put that along the bottom. So that will now cover up the majority of the torn paper that's still on the back of my circle, as you can very well see. But I have lots of foam squares on the back, and I doubled up the one section that went off the panel. I grabbed some of my white and black baker's twine, and you all know how well I love to make bows because I can't. So we make an attempt here to make a double bow, which actually ended up pretty good, and I just adhered that with a glue dot. I'm putting some more glue dots around because of course I had to pull in my iridescent sequins. They are my go-to sequins, and I made sure that there was one strategically placed in that spot that really tore the paper and had some of the white left. So that's a very bright sequin, but it's okay. And I'm just placing other sequins around. So again, a card that maybe you would have thrown in the trash. Just don't give up. You can still continue with it. I refuse to give up on it. So this rainbow background and the yellow card base you will not see again because we actually don't use it for this card. I was on a roll with this kit. So I have a small panel where I used my Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die. And I'm going to do the blend. So I'm putting the squeeze lemonade on the top, and I'm going very heavily with it. I wanted it very saturated with these colors. And now I'm bringing in the blue, and then I'm going to come back in with my yellow just to blend that out so that I get the green in the center. And I just keep working it. It's the beauty of the oxides. They work so well. They blend like butter. It's wonderful. I did some sprays with my distress sprayer, and I'm going to use a towel just to pick them up. And then this is one of the butterflies that I had stamped and used my scan and cut. And then I used my alcohol markers, just 2 shades, to give it some color and to blend a little bit. I'm going to use one of the butterfly trails from the stamp set and have that going on an angle. And then I chose 2 sentiments. You can do it. Stay strong. And I'm just going to stamp that off to the side there. I'm going to use my clear embossing powder. Now you can see that it's pretty much covering this card. I didn't use my anti-static tool. You can see it's going around where I used the water. That's what I wanted. This is just giving this panel some texture. Not so much shiny, but just some texture. So I didn't want it to not be there. I actually planned on it having that color, and I wish the camera picked it up just a little bit better because it looks really cool on the panel itself. I used a piece of fun foam to prop that up, and I'm going to use a couple of foam squares to prop up my butterfly on the end of the trail. So it's almost like the butterfly is kind of doing a reverse because of the way the trail is going, but I'm okay with it. I like the way that it absolutely looks. And now we're just going to set that in place and have that come off the panel just a little bit. I pulled in my Pretty Pink Posh dewdrops, and I'm going to place them around. The pencil that I'm using here is called a wax pencil, and it's actually used in the nail art industry to pick up the gems when they put them on the nails. I love this for my sequins and my dewdrops. So here's that panel again, and the yellow card base. So yes, we are going to use it this time. I pulled out 3 of the butterflies that I had stamped and cut out before, and I chose 3 shades of natural gray. So some of you know, if you've been around my channel for a while, I love the monochrome look, the black and white look. I think it's elegant. I think it helps to make your pieces stand out. And that's what I'm doing with these butterflies. I've got a bright yellow card base. I've got a rainbow backdrop, and I've got this white panel that I used my penny black antique frame die for, that's smaller. So you can see I used those 3 colors of my alcohol markers just to blend out on the wings. I'm using my black Spectrum Noir glitter pen to fill in the circles and certain areas on the butterfly. And then I'm actually going to come in with some vintage photo just to go around each of the butterflies, just to distress them a little bit, just to give them another color. And I also did that to this white panel with the brown going around. I'm using the sentiment Thinking of You, and I'm going to use my clear embossing powder to set that. I'm going to set my first panel down, and again my card base is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 top folding. And then I'm going to prop up using the scrap fun foam from my piece on the back of the second panel. I'm using my Tonic Studios paper score tool, which I'm in love with. I'm absolutely in love with it. That one and my Stampin' Up, they are my 2 favorite. And I'm just curling the wings, and then I'm just setting glue in the center of them and setting them down onto my panel. I'm then using some of the black crystal drops or the jewels that I used before, and I'm filling those in on the butterfly circles. And then I have this Desiree confetti. It's iridescent circles, and I really like them, and I place them around the card as well. So I hope you enjoyed these cards. These are just some of the close-ups of the cards that are in this video, as always, so that you can see all of the different techniques that I used and other things up close. If you did enjoy this video, please hit the thumbs up. If you haven't already subscribed and you're new, please hit that subscribe button so that you can stay up to date when more videos are released. There will be so many more. We have technique videos. We have the Simplicity series that will continue. And of course, I have a couple 10 cards, 1 kit, and other wonderful kits that I show on this channel as well. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. I will get back to you as soon as I can. But I know if it's an important question, I know there's others here that will help answer that as well. So we're all here to help and to learn and, of course, be creative. Sorry about that. I started to ramble again. All the products that I used will be listed down below with links if you wanted to check them out just a little bit further. So again, I hope you did enjoy this. Stay tuned for more. And always remember, everyone, be creative.